Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Lizardmen, who are going to be led by Jabba the Hutt, and the Dwarves, who are going to be led by a Rune Lord, and I actually think he's going to be on foot. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as the army goes, in the front line, we do have an entire core of the Temple Guard. So as you guys have known, we've said it in a couple other videos, but the Temple Guard are a halberd unit, so as you know, halberd units, when you compare them to great weapon units, have slower attack rates. But Temple Guard actually have pretty good attack rates as far as halberd units go, so they do okay in the front line against the Dwarves, and it's just me. Those shields like glowing. I think it might be some effects with the water. That actually looks like really cool. But anyways, the Temple Guard here do have pretty good armor piercing values. They have really high melee defense. Definitely a solid frontline choice against the Dwarves. They have 85 armor. Saurus Warriors and Skinks on a lot of those other troops definitely take a lot of damage from blasting charges, but these guys are just rock solid. They can hold in the front line. And if you're supporting with Aslan or like Mazda Mundi with Apotheosis and some of his other supporting abilities, they can definitely be very, very durable. So Temple Guard in the front line. On the wings, we do have a couple groups of skink cohorts. So the Dwarves, you definitely want to go very wide. You're going to be seeing missiles and cannons and thunders and all kinds of stuff like that. So having a couple groups of skink cohorts to just go around the flank and be annoying is definitely very important. So we have 4 of those in total. On top of that, we have a couple clever girls. So we have 2 groups of these bad boys, one here, and then I believe one on the other side as well. And they're okay. They're pretty fast. They're kind of like Lizardmen Cav in a way. I mean, 70 speed, decent AP, really low combat stats. But honestly, if you're just like chasing off miners or like low tier troops that the Dwarves often bring in mass, these guys can be pretty good. And, they're a distraction at the very least. Because a lot of times Dwarf players will allocate like a group of Slayers or something very high value to chase them down. So we got the Toadmaster, we got Mazda Mundi with Apotheosis. Arcane Unfortunate against Runesmith actually isn't terrible. And we also have Curse of the Midnight Wind. And I always like to bring one group of Pterodon Riders just in case they get a Gyrocopter, because these things can actually just chase Gyrocopters and troll them in melee. So always bring one just to keep your opponent honest, in my opinion. And on the far side, this is going to be the real heavy hitters of our army. We have 2 groups of the Horned Ones. So we have one here, and then we have one on the opposite side of the map, which is going to be taking a very wide route. And we do have some this is kind of cool. Look at this like pass here. All the lizards just like swarming down here to gank the dwarves, which is pretty cool. As far as the dwarf army goes in the front line, it's definitely a solid build. He does have layers, so it's going to be tough to kind of get through and get to those thunders. Front line is going to be dwarf warriors, which honestly are super cost effective against DINO infantry. So he does have dwarf warriors in the front line. Thunders in the secondary line. He does have the Altars Raiders in the back, so expecting some big dinosaurs, but I honestly think going wider with like Temple Guard and trying to swarm is the way to beat the Dwarves. If you go with Dinos, they're just going to punish you with their guns and Slayers. So Thunders. He does also have Altars Raiders, which are pretty gangster. Giant Slayers in the back, so if these Giant Slayers can get on Mazda Mundi, that big old thick boy back there, not going to be good. Dwarf Warriors on the wings, and I think, does he have anything else out here? He does. He actually has Dragonback Slayers as well as a cannon. So it looks like there's kind of like a green warp mist coming up from the swamps, like illuminating these things. I don't know if that's like a bug with my graphics, but it does look really, really cool. So I was actually looking at some of the new Night Haunts units from Age of Sigmar, and it kind of looks like their paint scheme. But anyways, guys, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So he does have a Gyrocopter with the Brimstone gun, just one, which isn't a bad choice. Thankfully, I do have the Pterodon Riders, so you can see are going to be swarming out there. These guys hopefully going to be able to chase them off. Pterodon Riders do have okay stats in melee, and they should be able to, at least put a dent in those things. So the main line's advancing, and now it's going to get a little bit ugly. The cannon did some pretty good damage against Temple Guard, actually killing 12 models there. So very, very good stuff initially. And now the Thunders are going to open fire. Thankfully, I do have shields, so the Dinos are going to be marching into the face of the withering gunfire. Jabba the Hutt with the aura of Pretzel. So he does have this, this is so terrible. He does have the aura of, I'm just going to call it the Sunburst Standard of Pretzel here. It gives 12% magic or missile resist as well as melee defense. So very, very solid in the center of your formation. And also the Rune, Wrath, and Ruin going down to my Temple Guard. So a lot of damage coming in on these guys. It's definitely going to be quite a beating they take before they get in. The Horned Ones are going to be charging in the flank. So we had the Slayers back here. So I was like, I'm going to get some freebies if I can, just sweep through. So the Horned Ones coming in with just a fat balls deep charge here on these Dwarf Warriors who do not have charge defense. Longbeard's Great Weapons do. I think actually do Dwarves Warriors have it? Oh, they actually do have charge defense. Okay, I'm totally wrong. For some reason, I was thinking of miners. But yeah, the Dwarf Warriors do actually have it. But they weren't braced there. They were trying to like reform ranks. The Temple Guard in the front are going to be smashing in. And at this point, I know I'm going to lose the Horned One, so I'm just going to path them through. I'm just going to force path, trying to shut down as many units as I possibly can. Really good Rune, Wrath, and Ruin from my opponent. Actually, no, that's a Hammer of Character As. But regardless, debuffing those guys' combat stats. Melee attack is now 0, so those Dwarf Warriors are going to last a lot longer. Frontline fight is underway. The Temple Guard are going to be monster mashing some of the Dwarf Warriors. They'll definitely win very, very heavily. Dwarf Warriors have pretty poor armor piercing themselves and relatively low melee attack. So they're low melee attack and low AP against the Temple Guard, who have high melee defense and high armor. It's definitely going to be a very one-sided affair. I also use Curse of the Midnight Wind to make them even squishier here in the front line. These Temple Guard did take a bit of a beating, and he does have layers and a lot of supporting units here, so it's going to be a little bit tough to really grind through his army. Osmighty's going to be waddling in as well, and you can see the Horned Ones have jumped in and shut down quite a few units. So basically I attacked these Dwarf Warriors, I broke them, then I rear charged into this formation with Curse of the Midnight Wind. The Horned Ones, of course, getting massacred, but again, they are going to break 2 formations and really open up this back pocket. A huge banishment going down. I saw he had a blob with his Giant Slayers as well as the Thunder, so I was trying to get a 2 for 1, and we did some okay damage. Wasn't the best for sure. But the other group does get around the far side, so the Clever Girls do jump on these Thunders, and again, a lot of units to deal with, and Clever Girls are really, really cheap, so they're able to jump on these Thunders and temporarily shut them down, which is nice, but they're probably honestly going to lose in combat there. And my other group of Horned Ones was able to outmaneuver the Dwarfish defenses. It did take some Overwatch on the entry here, regardless doing great damage against the Thunders as well as the Eldar's Raiders here. Now, he is getting really good crossfire. Beautiful play from my opponent. Staying in the pocket, keeping his guys in guard mode, making sure to just shoot down my Horned Ones. And if they do rampage, it's definitely not going to be fun because there are Slayers lurking nearby, but wherever I go, I'm always taking fire, which is solid. Rune of Wrath and Ruin going down as well, but we do charge into those Dwarves right there. And we get a really, really good damage on the charge. But they are rampaging now, so I pretty much lost control. So we'll see what they end up doing. Balance of power is pretty even at this point. These Skinks on the wings are just occupied with some Dwarves, just a bit of a wet noodle contest. Over here, though, we did break the formation with his Lord. So the Rune Lord is a little bit surrounded now. Arcane and Forging is going to add 30 seconds to all of his Rune cooldowns, and the Temple Guard have really good AP. Now, he's not on his Anvil, so he's still just a small target, so no anti-large for him. Feral Cold Ones in the back doing a good job, like I said. I mean, they rampage. They're able to do almost half HP to these Thunders, and they also force my opponent to send some infantry to deal with him, so for how cheap they are, they're definitely paying for themselves. Mazda Money over here does pop the Cold Blood to heal up a little bit. The Giant Slayers actually got on him, and I had to pull some Temple Guard to bodyguard duty, but the Giant Slayers really put a beating on him, which was pretty scary. The Temple Guard should be able to take these guys out pretty easily. My Horned Ones and pretty much all my elite troops are rampaging, but I think they've already paid for themselves. The Bounce of Power, a little bit in my favor here. You can see he does have his Runesmith retreating. The Horned Ones are going to be chasing those guys down. Over here, the Feral Cold Ones are stacked on top of Skinks, which is a very cheap kind of armor-piercing kit, right? Because you get like the bodies with the Skinks and the HP, and you get the armor piercing with the Feral Cold Ones, which is cool, but we actually pulled the Slayers off because the Slayers went to go deal with the Horned Ones, and when the Slayers left, he only left some Dwarf Warriors to guard this, and I was able to overwhelm them and cut down the cannon, which was quite nice. But yeah, the Bounce Fire is, I'd say it's actually going back towards my opponent a little bit. It's pretty dead center. Mazda Money here is just kind of whacking some guys from the top of his toilet seat. The Horned Ones here in a bit of a pit fight. The Rune Lord, it looks like he is going to be using a Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin on the Temple Guard. They're definitely quite durable, but I'm also taking some Thunder Fire, so good play from my opponent. He's able to fall back, hold me into gunfire. His other group of Thunders here just tears apart my Horned Ones there, just actually shatters them. The Altar's Raiders have reset as well, so when his front line kind of crumbled here, he fell back, he formed a second battle line, and even though it's looking a little bit grim for him, some very, very good play for sure. So the Thunders here are going to be probably turning to face the Clever Girls. They're going to be charging in. Looks like the Mark of Altar is going to be going down to them. They do charge in, and they actually have really good mass. They're able to punch quite a few of those Dwarfs, but the Altar's Raiders should be able to take them out. So definitely a sad day for these Lost Raptors. In the meantime, I do pop the Shield of the Old Ones to get my Skinks magic resist, but alas, the Banishment actually just killed down Skinks, which is really sad. I was kind of hoping to get some of those Dwarf Warriors, but I kind of felt like the battle was already in my favor. I could, take a chance to, I could take some risks here, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. The Rune Lord here getting pretty beat up by all these Lizards. You can see he has about 113 HP. He's probably going to fall, although it looks like he's going to be retreating to some of these Dwarf Warriors. Money's in good shape. He was able to heal up with Apotheosis and Cold Blood, and also something else to point out is the Pterodon Riders were able to shut down the Gyrocopter, so they couldn't get away. The Pterodon swarmed them and actually chased them off the battlefield, so obviously they're going to be a little bit better in melee than the Gyrocopters, if I'm not mistaken. They just have a higher model count. Mazda Money over here still dropping some hot Doritos here on these Dwarf Warriors. Definitely does not hit very hard because, again, Dwarves do have 25% magic resist, and Mazda Money is going to be heavily mitigated there. The Temple Guard here in the front line are really the MVPs. They've just been paying their dues, just grinding and chopping through these Dwarves. 75 kills on these ones. Quite eager to see the kill count on these Temple Guard after the battle is over. And yeah, you can see these guys are wavering. These Temple Guard are pushing through the back line. And I think the Horned Ones, as well as the Feral Cold Ones, had a really nice synergy. I mean, not necessarily like a unit-specific synergy, but the backline pressure was really cool. And that's often something that the Dinos do lack, because they don't have like the fastest units. Their heavy cav have like 66 speed. You don't have anything like really zippy like Skirmisher cav to harass with. So I think having the cheap Velociraptors, specifically against the Dwarves, I don't think they're going to be as good in other matchups, but against the Dawi, I think that the Feral Cold Ones are pretty good. I mean, for their cost, they're really cheap, they're annoying, they're going to force your opponent to use resources to shut them down, usually costing more than you're spending on the Dinos, which I think is a pretty good investment. Well played to my opponent. It was definitely quite a fun battle here in the swamps. I definitely had the advantage of the aquatics with my Skinks, but I feel like this is a pretty good anti-Dwarf build. A lot of people would probably argue that you just cut the Horned Ones and you just go like get like 5 more Saurus, like 4 or 5 more Saurus. And arguably that might be better because just spamming Saurus as well as like infantry is really hard for the Dwarves to handle. Saurus infantry very grindy against Dwarves and miners and things like that. So I mean, I remember in the early days when I was playing the Dwarves, I was having a pretty good time against the Dinos when they were bringing dinosaurs. But when people started to figure out you just spam infantry, it's definitely harder for the Dwarves. I mean, they can do it; they just have to build appropriately. But if you don't respect the dinosaur, then they can come in and punish you as well. So there is some give and take. But yeah, Temple Guard were really good in the front line. The Skink cohorts did pretty good for what they were there for. I mean, just to surround and harass and kind of occupy space. The Feral Cold ones didn't get a ton of kills, but they were disrupting the missile line nonstop. They were just a perpetual presence, definitely very solid and quick. I think they have like 70 speed, so I mean, they don't have anyone riding them, so they can run at their full potential here. And then 95 and 71. The Horn ones are depending on the terrain of the map. Now, if you're in like a really open field map, I think Horn ones are too risky. Typically in a really competitive situation, because the Horn ones are just going to get cannoned down, and oftentimes they're going to rampage, and it's going to suck pretty bad. But if there is a little bit of terrain and line of sight obstructing rocks and things like this, I think they can be pretty good. Like on this map, I had a very wide route which obstructed the cannon. I also had the forest on the right side which obstructed the cannon, so it allowed them to get in and at least not take shots until it really mattered. But I do like them quite a bit. I think they're solid. I would really like to see Creative Assembly like remove Rampage from them. I mean, they're very elite. You're paying so much already, and I mean, they're not like insanely powerful in terms of their stats. Rampage just kind of makes them unviable in most matchups. But I think that Dinos could really use them if they didn't have Rampage. But anyways, for my opponent's army, I definitely liked it. So let's see. I would have liked to see a couple miners in the front with blasting charges just to blast my skinks. And on top of that, they do have AP against the Temple Guard. They trade pretty effectively. I would recommend a second Runesmith. A couple Longbeards with Great Weapons is also a really solid pick against both Dinosaurs, Cav, and Temple Guard, so they would have been good as well. Maybe cut the range down a little bit, cut the Gyrocopter, cut one Thunder, and just get some Longbeards with Great Weapons, and I think that would have been really good. But yeah, it was still a solid build from my opponent for sure. So very well played to Carl over here. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Dino game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.